Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Focus On with myself, Fifi Peters. Now, in just a few days, Africans will be exchanging the heated sun for the chilling snow in Davos to attend the 54th annual meetings of the World Economic Forum. The theme of this year's meeting is rebuilding trust in a world that has been fractured by war, geopolitical tensions, climate change, and political uncertainty. In this week's episode, we are speaking with the acting CEO of Brand South Africa, Stembile Ntombela, about the message she will be taking to the global stage. Stembile, thanks so much once again for your time. So, you're going back to the World Economic Forum. I mean, you were there last year. I think the question really is, what is the message from Brand South Africa in 2024, and how is it different from the message that was shared last year?
So this year, in line with the WEF messaging, which is anchored on rebuilding trust, and really that centers around the spirit of reflecting, of being brilliant at basics, going back to find out really what worked, what didn't work, and therefore how do you reshape the agenda, given the current challenges, whether we're talking geopolitics, the slow economic growth, high rising inflation rates and standard of living. So our message is really building upon that we are also rebuilding our trust, essentially, as a brand and as the people of South Africa. And we are anchoring our messages around resilience. Most of the time, Fifi, resilience is seen to be a cliche. People say we're tired of being resilient because resilient means we must succumb and deal with all these weaknesses, but it doesn't. It says it's your ability to somersault through trying times, and the trying times actually bring the best. They bring innovation. So our messaging is very clear. We are positioning South Africa still as an investment destination. We are tapping into our resiliency, borrowing from the successes of the World Cup, because what really made them win is determination, it's the resilient. So why are we finding it difficult to understand that? We're also reshaping the narrative. With the captains of industry, we rely on them to be a defining voice that is going to provide reasons to believe in this country in their various constituencies. So that is the messaging we are taking to WEF Davos, and pretty much flows from last year's message where we said we were open for business. We've never closed for business, truth be told.
Sure.
In fact, at Davos is one platform where you see everybody's open. Is open. You find Brand Sweden open, Nigeria is open. So this year we are saying no, actually, we are going there, we are bold, we are brave. Sure. We are talking about our challenges and addressing them.
So I actually wish addressing some of our challenges was as easy as the Springboks claiming that victory in last year's match. Because things would look a lot different, right? We would even drop resiliency and would be talking about strength to strength. But it's not that easy because, on the ground, the economic playfield, there's the power issue still. Things are getting better, but it's still a challenge. There's the rail issue that also some are now saying is even bigger than the power issue. There's unemployment, there's high inequality. But I think in terms of trust, it seems as though the trust factor between business and government, or even individuals in this economy, is not that high for South Africa. That's my personal view. But you engage with business locally and internationally. You engage with government as well. If you had to rank the level of trust in your country based on the interactions that you have had with external players on a scale of 1 to 5, where would you put it, and what needs to be done to improve that trust?
Questions of scaling are always tricky, because the reality is that trust is compromised between government and public sector. And it's not only a hearsay, but there are indices such as Edelman Trust that have shown and demonstrated where exactly we are going wrong. So to answer your question, I would say perhaps we are somewhere there at 3 out of 5. And why am I saying that? Is purely because we still are collaborating. We are seeing the triple Ps, the public-private partnerships, public-private partnerships, where we are seeing, public sector standing up and reaching out, and government, vice versa, reaching out. And there are platforms that have been created by both these stakeholders where they really deal with challenges, for instance, around energy, the issues that are crippling us from progressing, which is why you would have seen the cabinet approved integrated resource plan in December. That is to give a worst case scenario as well as, a kind of a conservative view that says when are we going to come out of the load shedding scenario. There's also logistics, issues around transport. And I think the truth of the matter, Vivi, is to acknowledge those weaknesses and quickly come up with interventions. And as you come up with those interventions, communicate those interventions, be transparent, and leave no room for people to guess. Because when they guess, it actually deteriorates the brand, because then people, pulls the brand sideways.
Sure.
And I really think the theme of rebuilding that trust really it's a call to action for government, for civil society, for private sector to have the honest conversations. Public sector must be bold and say we are not happy, and these are the reasons. And governments must come on board and say, okay, therefore, what does the solution look like? And for me, what gives me hope is that even though we know there's a little bit of a commotion, but the will of knowing that we have a country that we need to build. And it's not about the people that are alive now, here and now, you and me. We are doing it for the legacy, for our children, grandchildren, and so forth. So we want to be the people or the tribe that says, what did we do? How did we play our part to make sure that we reverse or we stop this deteriorating declines in FDI, in competitiveness, for instance. So I really think to sum it all up, honesty, transparency, and speed to execute. I don't think it's any lack of any, policies, but the left hand has to know what the right hand is doing.
Sure.
So that we don't have, colliding situations when it comes to visa. There was one of the comments came that how are you going to attract skills when we have issues around visa? But we need to create those roundtable strategic platform, and I think Brand SA is suitable to lead in those discussions because they are more pertinent. We cannot continue to do things the way we've been doing the past decade and think, we will move the needle. We can't.
So obviously you're making reference to some of the comments that were shared in the WEF pre-breakfast hosted by Brand SA and also national government. And just fast forwarding to the World Economic Forum next week, where you are going to be speaking about tourism. And I'm glad that you actually mentioned the issue of visas, because many people say that Africa has a huge opportunity when it does come to the tourism offering. Anyone who was in South Africa, who visited Cape Town or went to the Kruger or even in Johannesburg, would have seen the influx of foreign travelers from continental Europe and the US, and even from the continent that were here. In terms of that tourism offering, though, and strengthening South Africa's case as a tourist hub, what will your message be to the international community?
So the topic is quite interesting because the problem looks at over-tourism. We are full.
Sure.
I don't think that's so much of an African country's problem. In fact, we do welcome, we want, tourism. We need to fix where our disablers, where we're not going right. So our message is quite simple. We're a diverse country where you get to experience or rather get different experiences in one country, from the coast to the mountains, to the to go to see adventure, Big Five, etc. But also we are talking about now introducing the new things around innovation. And I also believe the fact that our tourism, because it's so much engraved in our culture and heritage, that also gives us a proposition that sets us apart from the rest. Because people, when they come, they go to those very same places. We want to see Madiba. We want to see where was he born. We want to see those landmarks. Some of our icons and legends. That are continuously building this brand. And I think our proposition is that we are open as a tourism destination. We are diversified in our offering, but more so, there's one thing that we have, which is the service industry. Our capabilities to serve and give service in that hospitality is quite out of this world. I must say it ranks amongst the best of this world, and the people of South Africa that are so friendly. We do a lot of research, obviously from a nation brand perspective, which also measures tourism. And one of the things that constantly comes up, it's the warmness and the friendliness of our people. And I also think it's also building on the fact that we are rebuilding trust, we have to be honest and talk about the interventions that are being made. For instance, if you look at what the South African tourism are doing with Google, I briefly touched on it at the breakfast, but really it speaks to the level of detail, understanding the nuances that when a tourist come into South Africa, which routes, popular routes, they use Google Maps, and where are the incidents of crime happening. And Google has decided that there are certain destinations that they will remove, so that they rather channel people in the right direction where their safety comes first. And I think that's a proactive approach to make sure that we're creating a safe environment. We know that one of our disablers is crime in South Africa. So we're not sitting and twiddling our thumbs and say, how are we going to do? We're working very closely, yes, with the Ministry of Police, but now, hang on, look at the private sector. They're bringing in new innovation. So that is why I'm saying our message is quite clear. Come to a country that is inspiring in new and different ways, a country of endless possibilities.
That wraps up this week's episode of Focus On. Do stay tuned for more coverage from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. From myself, Ify Peters, it's bye for now.